It was 8-6 to the Red Devils at half-time, but another game where it really swung at half-time, and it finished up 22 points to 8 in favour of the Leeds Rhinos. 4,757 were there. Marcus Griffiths, as we'll all have heard by now, was the referee in this game. In terms of the stats, a poor sub-90% tackle success rate didn't stop Leeds winning this one. From pretty much the same number of carries, they made 259 more metres at 1.5 metres per carry, better average gain, and they created 4 breaks to 2 and scored 4 tries to 2. Individually, Cameron Smith, another massive defensive effort, 50 tackles, 12 of which were marker tackles. I think I'm right in saying that only the relentless machine that is Danny Houghton has made more tackles than Cameron Smith so far this year. Matt Pryor with 44 tackles and 101 metres, he went both ways. Ash Hanley with a try assist and 144 metres, and Conrad Hurrell with 135 metres and 3 successful offloads. For the Salford side, it does look like some of their forwards made some hard efforts here. Gil Dudson, I mean, big both ways effort for Gil Dudson, and I feel sorry for him actually, because from the highlights you only see him involved twice and both of them are missed tackles, but outside of that, I hear he was fantastic, and he made 47 tackles and 153 metres in a sterling effort. Paulie 6 tackle bus and 116 metres, and Seb Ikehefo with 8 tackle bus and 101 metres. Do you want to give us the first of the fan views?
I will. It's from Cav, who says Salford much better first half in poor conditions. A bit of brilliance from Dwyer meant it was just 2-point game at half time. Rhino showed up much better in the second half and looked to be continuing their improvement in the absence of their captain and vice captain.
Who's the vice captain?
I don't know.
Anyway, Dr. Bob Phillips said, watch this via Twitter and a burst of radio while on the wards and around the hospital. Just one question after the stunning victory. Who actually is coaching? Because no Agar team plays like this, do they?
And Rich Wilkinson says, another solid win for Leeds. This looks like a team heading in the right direction. Some nice shape in attack and solid defence after a ropey first half. Keep Salford scoreless in the second half. Now Newman is back in the centre. He looks different class. Big test next week. #MOT.
Cutthroat Jake said, a tough first half with Lola here showing Leeds what we could have had, being balanced out by a piece of Dwyer genius and support play from Gale, worthy of Danny Maguire. Wow. You are getting excited there, John. He said, the second half was a lot better, with a resolute defence crowned off with a glorious counter-attack for Walker's try. My man of the match would have to be Pryor for his unrelenting, no-nonsense effort reminiscent of JP. Yeah, to be honest, those both-way stats are JP-like.
Yeah. John Hamilton says, pretty terrible conditions, meant a drop by Gale from the kick-off, and when Salford went 8-0 up, it looked bleak. Really encouraging to see Leeds come back so well and take control of the second half. Gutsy win showing heart that has previously been missing. Something pissed the league.
Mark Stevo said, tough grind in Arctic conditions, especially the first half. Salford took their 2 tries well, exposed our left edge defence. Second half, we played better, off a better go forward, and deservedly got the win. Notably there, we don't get anything from any Salford fans, which is disappointing because
there's been a lot on Twitter, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, and also there's been a lot from the head coach. I have just read the match reviews and seen the sort of highlights from this one. The highlights suggest that both teams had trouble tackling on their edges. That's for sure. But obviously Leeds sorted that out in the second half and Salford didn't. Now, my friend Cass went to this game. He got tickets through work, so he went to this game as a neutral. And I asked, I thought, right, I love it when a neutral goes to a game like this, where all you've heard is one side bashing the referee and the other side saying we grew into the game and did well and it's great to have Luke Gale sort of thing. So I was like, right, tell me what happened. And so, effectively, what he said is every close call in the game probably went Leeds' way. And as a result, Salford fans became increasingly frustrated and felt increasingly cheated, even though the decisions weren't clear-cut, and you can understand why the decisions were made that they were made, even though you could have understood if a different decision was made. So that was his take on it as a neutral, and I tend to, trust that when the main talking point from one side is the referee. But there was a lot of talk about this referee losing composure, I think, more than anything else in this game after the Salford fans started to get down his throat from the 50-50 calls. The main call that's caused the outcry seems to have been early in the second half, after basically Salford had been the better side for 50 minutes of the match. A kick went up. Luke Gale and I think it might have been Richie Myler both came in on Niall Evalds. Now, I've watched this and paused it at the point where I think contact is made by the Leeds players, and Niall Evalds has his left foot on the floor, from what I can see.
He does.
So it's a very close call that the Salford fans went off their fucking nuts about. Now, sorry, go on.
No, they did. I did exactly the same thing, Mark, this afternoon. I paused it and I came to exactly the same conclusion. It was right on the edge.
Yeah.
But his foot was on the floor when he hit him.
I can't say for sure that no contact was made before his foot hit the floor, but I certainly can't say with any confidence that he was tackled in the air.
No. It looked like a really well-timed hit to me.
Either well-timed or luckily timed, but one or the other, it felt that way. And from that point, the game went away from from Salford. Leeds scored from the next play. I think there was possibly an argument that one of the passes in the build-up for Briscoe's try was flat. So arguable. However, you have a chance to defend your own line there, and if all you're bothered about is thinking the referee's done you an injustice, you're not focusing on your job, and that's why Leeds were able to get in and score. And then Leeds scored some tries that Salford should be disappointed about, even though the Jack Walker try would be my highlight moment of the game. I mean, Hurrell's breakout a dummy half, Hanley's intervention running down the wing, showing his pace, and then not many players turn Evalds inside out like Jack Walker did to actually get the try over in the corner. So that was a fantastic piece of play, the highlight real moment of the game for me. But I don't know if you have anything else different to offer on that.
No, I mean, that was a great try, by the way. I thought, in fact, there were a number of really good tries I thought in this game. Again, with watching the highlight, it's difficult to sort of get a real sense of the frustrations that are building up.
Yeah,
if
I agree.
A whole string of 50-50s are not going your way. That one incident, I couldn't see why Salford fans were so irate about it, because it looked, like a well-timed tackle to me. But I think it may be the straw that broke the camel's back if there's been a lot of calls where Griffiths, I'm sure, has just called it the way he saw it. But if all of them have just gone one way, you can kind of, what it's like, Mark, if you're on the terraces and go one way, one goes the other. But if they all go one way, you start to imagine someone's got some sort of vendetta against you, because none of this is working in your favour. And maybe that's why Salford fans are feeling a little bit aggrieved by it. But
I also think they will have felt frustrated with their own side, but you never let that be the reason why you're frustrated, do you? Oftentimes as fans, if you think you can blame the referee, you'll blame them over your own heroes. But I think there'll have been some frustration with their own side, because they clearly were the better side in that first half. Yet one lapse where they let Dwyer shoot out a dummy half meant that the scoreline was, really close, 8-6 at half time. Yeah. So that would have been frustrating. They started the second half off with a 40-20. They had great field position and they couldn't execute. Now, part of that will have been down to, Chris Atkin making his debut, so not having a tried and tested combination in there at halves. And I do think as well, as the game then started to get away from them, as the fans became more frustrated, the players would have become more frustrated with themselves and probably with the referee too, if the fans were making them feel like that was the problem. And we'll get to the coach making them feel like that was the problem too later on. But I think if that starts to happen, you need leadership. And while Skill Dudson clearly tried to work his arse off in a leadership type role, Salford were missing Sargentson, who's the man for the dirty carry in the bad moment. They were missing Mossop, who's the captain of the side. And they were missing Kevin Brown, who's the main... through his own fault, through his own poor actions last week, by the way. But they were missing Kevin Brown, who's the main organiser of the side. And I do think that would have had an impact on this Salford side. That much experience out of a side that is not the strongest squad in the competition, even though it has some good players. And so, you know, I think as a Salford fan, rather than blame the referee, look at some of the legitimate mitigation in why maybe you weren't able to execute the plays as much as you would want to, and think that it's not all lost once these players, who I don't think are out on long-term injuries, once these players come back, or suspensions, as it were.
Yeah, and you said we'll talk about Watson in a minute. It doesn't strike me as being the sort of coach to have a moan, but
that's never heard this out of him before. I don't know if that's kind of the way you're going with that. Yeah,
it's not something that I've noticed in him before. So I don't know whether he's been affected by the number of 50-50s that all seem to have gone one way, or whether he's frustrated by the situation he finds himself in, which is that even though they've played pretty well, or other than in the first game against Saints where they were completely off the mark, in the other games they've played pretty well, but they're looking up from way down the table at the moment. They've not got off to as good a start as I'm sure he would have wanted to, and maybe he's found that frustrating. I don't know, and the injuries that he's had, obviously.
I've just worked it out. Reece Martin's the second captain or whatever who was out for Leeds, and he's the player whose injury absence is why they've brought in Joe Greenwood, I would think, as well, actually. Credit to Leeds, credit to Luke Gale, who I think is a very important cog in their machine, and also Rich Wilkinson shouted it out there. Harry Newman back in the centres, 2 games back. It's 2 games that he played on the or is 1 game, I think. Whatever the games he played on the wing, he just didn't get involved enough. Whereas when you put him into the centres, you know, he shows what he is a real wiry, rangy player who's got so much more power than his physique suggests. Kind of a bit like Percival at St Helens, to be honest. I think he's a great talent and is having a chance to show, you know, all the best that he can bring. And I'm a big Harry Newman fan.
I mean, from what I've seen him at the moment, obviously he's got a long way to go yet, but he's got really good balance. He is stronger than he looks. He's got good hands and he's got good feet, and he's a good decision maker on the field.
Yeah.
So a lot of promise for the kid, and hopefully for England and Great Britain's sake, it won't be Great Britain again, will it? After the last disaster. So for England's sake, let's hope we see him continue to develop. Who knows? He might get a look in towards the end of the year.
Yeah, certainly a talented kid, and I think we'll end on that positive rather than the sort of nastier side of things with some of the coaches' comments about the referee. And we'll move on to the final game that we're going to talk about, which was at the DW Stadium, a game I was in attendance for, where Wigan played against Hull FC. It was 10-8 to Wigan at half-time, slightly controversially so that they got that kickable penalty just before the half-time hooter. But Wigan in the second half were the much stronger side, and it finished 26 points to 12 in front of 12,005. Robert Hicks was the referee who had to sort out that issue just before half-time, but otherwise had a pretty solid game. In terms of the stats, Hull actually had a very slight edge on a number of the stats. They made 24 metres at a little bit better average gain, 1 more clean break, 12 more successful offloads. One fewer penalty conceded for Hull rather than Wigan, and even a marginally better tackle success rates. Some of these might surprise. Although Wigan were more clinical with their